Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you some ideas connected to the Queen's Gambit accepted variation. Let's start with this game I played. I think I played it yesterday and I discovered my opponent is not aware of the devices and the scope in the Queen's Gambit accepted. So I took advantage of it and I won the game. I decided to make a video out of it and still share other ideas in the Queen's Gambit accepted. Let's dive right into it. In this game I played d4, obviously that is the first move in the Queen's Gambit accepted. First of all, that pawn is a queen's pawn. So let's say the pawn is standing in front of the queen, so we call it queen's pawn opening. So how come it became a Queen's Gambit? This is how. My opponent played this move, which is d5. Then I gambited this pawn on c4. I gave out the pawn. With this knowledge, I decide to want to control the center. If my opponent takes the pawn, I will develop a pawn to the center here. That's what I did. Sometimes some players like playing this pawn to this square so that they can take full control of centers like this. You see, an aggressive response, e4. But I went for a very cool, calm move, e3. I opened this diagonal for the bishop to recapture. Soon, I'll bring in my knight, then put pressure on this square. Even sometimes bringing the queen here is an idea. In this game, my opponent went with pawn, defending that pawn on c4. When I saw this, I instantly knew that there's an idea with this kind of setup. If you observe the setup already, you discover that this light square diagonal is now open towards the rook. So, the popular response here in traps that I've seen is playing this pawn to a4. Then black will try to block it. However, in my own game, I play something different. So let me finish my game with you. I played this move. Knight here to c3. This is not the best at the moment. So I will come back to the best move when it comes to this position later on. My opponent went on with something different. He played this, defending that pawn. Well, I went for this aggressive move, which is a4. He brought the bishop. I instantly remembered that if I take this pawn, if my opponent recaptured, I'm going to take the rook. So what I did was to take the pawn. However, my opponent went for something different. He played this. So I went on with queen to f3. You see, look at the exclamation mark. Queen to f3 at this point is inaccurate. My opponent played this to block that attack on the rook. Well, that was a double attack. The queen attacked this pawn. So I intended to take the rook if he didn't block this. However, this gave me a different idea by bringing the bishop into the game after taking that pawn. Now the bishop attacks this square, f7. Queen attacks this square, f7. What to do? Well, my opponent played this. This was a blunder. As you can see it yourself, it's a blunder. So I capitalized and I took the pawn and made a checkmate. This was how the game ended with my variation. So let's go back to this position here. I think it's on this move. My opponent played this. How can you create tension with this move? The popular response is playing this pawn to a4. Well, if your opponent still wants to be greedy, he can continue with this move, trying to hold on to that pawn. Just take. If he takes, then you take the rook. he's losing. Now, in some cases, he will try to do this defense with this pawn c6. Same idea. You do this, he takes. This time around, you can now unleash f3. I think f3 causes problems here. Just look at it. The rook is under attack. If he tries to block with the bishop, you capture the bishop. If he tries to block with the knight, you capture the knight. So, you are gaining a piece with this variation. Let me throw in some other ideas from this position in the Queen's Gambit accepted. This has also worked for me, OTB, against an opponent who was not aware of this trick. Check this out. In some cases, after you play, either you play this move or this, your opponent will try to fight for the center immediately with this move, pawn to c5. Continue with knight to c3. After knight to c3, your opponent will take this pawn. There are chances that your opponent captures that pawn and you get to this position. This is what you should do. We are going to develop the bishop by taking this pawn with an attention on f7 square. If your opponent is greedy and is not aware of this tactical idea, he or she would play pawn takes knight, thinking you can go for queen takes queen and the game will be normal. Unleash this capture here on f7. It's a bishop sacrifice. Given that bishop, the king has to take the bishop. So if king takes the bishop, queen takes queen, is simply winning. You can run this on your analysis board and look at the evaluation bar. You will see how it favors white in this position. Now, in many other cases, or we can say in some cases, if white goes with this, we have controlled the center right. What happens where black plays this? What do we do? Simple. You can go with this, knight to f3. It is clear that this knight defends this pawn and attacks this pawn. Black will try to play a move like this, bishop to g4, which pins down the knight to the queen so that he can take in the center. What you should do is take this pawn. In this variation, your opponents would likely take the pawn in the center. All we need to do is activate this queen here to b3. This move is deadly. This move defends the knight and prevents any kind of pawn structure issues in the future. The move is a double attack. Attacks this pawn here on b7. At the same time, supports the bishop to attack this pawn on f7. There are a couple of responses that black can play in this position. Let's talk about a few of them. Let's talk about the first one, bishop takes knight. Bishop takes knight can be punished with bishop takes pawn with check, king moves, queen to e6 is checkmate. Another option is bishop coming back home to e6. Just take the bishop, pawn takes, queen take, we check to the king. If queen blocks, we can come over to c8, we check to the king. If queen block, we take the pawn, threatening to take the rook. And this game favors white from here. You can run this in your analysis board and look at the evaluation bar. Back to this position. Let's consider one more. Let's look at queen to e7. Queen to e7 is cool. How do we address queen to e7? Naturally, we can just castle here. Queen cannot take this pawn because of the threat rook to e1, which pins the queen to the king. So in a case where black now plays a move like this, trying to bring the knight so he can castle and hide the king, what do we do? Simple. Just take the pawn on f7 with check. If king comes here, the knight to e5 checks the king, prepares to pick the bishop. Once the king goes in, the bishop is gone. In a case where the king goes in for safety, we can still throw in this sneaky move, knight to e5. After knight to e5, if bishop goes back home to defend this pawn, take this knight, rook takes, queen to f7 is checkmate. These ideas might be elementary to intermediate or experienced players. However, it's my little contribution to you. Play chess and win. Thank you for watching.